Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in rolling out 5G strategies and technologies. With me on today's show are Daniel Massey, Program Lead, 5G Initiative, Department of Defense; Rob Butel, Deputy Chief Technology Officer, U.S. Air Force; DeVarious Peoples, Chief Information Officer, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers; Stephen Douglas, Head of 5G Strategy, Spirent Communications; John Davis, Vice President Public Sector at Palo Alto Networks; and Brian Tromsky, Managing Partner 5G Public Sector at Verizon. Well, we've come out of the Petri dish with 5G and we're into, quite frankly, full implementation. Dan, let's start with you and talk about just the state of 5G across the Department of Defense.
Great. Well, thank you. So, 5G is really becoming a critical part of Department of Defense operations and communications at this point. I'm part of the 5G initiative at DoD. We have 5G deployed at 16 bases around the country. We are looking at new technologies in the innovate sector, what happens in the remaining 5G standardization process and 6G and beyond. And in my part of the portfolio in particular, operating through commercial 5G networks anywhere in the world. So we're moving forward on all those. We have great things like we're using 5G in Albany, Georgia, Coronado, California to build smart warehouses, taking advantage of that ability to have 5G cover massive amounts of connectivity. We're looking at spectrum sharing. I'm looking at projects that link into autonomous vehicles, and we could spend the rest of this program talking about all the different options, but we're very excited to be moving out with 5G. It's a critical part of the DoD communication strategy, and we're actively pushing forward on that.
I heard you say 6G, but I think the message there is 5G is here. It's being fully implemented across a variety of use cases, and we're very excited about hearing more. Rob, how about at U.S. Air Force? I can't imagine the use cases at the U.S. Air Force for this type of technology.
Yeah, so to work off of Dr. Massey's comments, of the 16 bases he's referring to, 5 of them are Air Force bases. A couple to emphasize are like the spectrum sharing effort. There's a major focus of that is at Hill Air Force Base. There's already been some immediate successes, and we're going to have some reports coming out here in the very near future detailing some of that. Also, some core security efforts down at the test bed at Joint Base San Antonio, which is going to have broad-reaching impacts across not just the Air Force, but the entire DoD, as we learn more about what it means to both secure and operate efficiently within a 5G framework.
I can't imagine all the capabilities that one can unlock when you start to fully realize and implement this. Again, I'm sure we're going to hear more about it. DeVarious, how about over at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers? Last time we had you on here, you all were on a tear there as far as rolling out capabilities. Very anxious to hear what's up with 5G.
Yes, sir. We are definitely leveraging 5G from Army Corps of Engineers perspective. First, just to like to say thank you for the opportunity to come again and chat. But several things we're doing from the Corps of Engineers. As you know, we're in all areas within the United States, 50 states. So some of the things we've done, we've rolled 5G out to 44 of the 50 sites that we have. But we're specifically leveraging 5G for the disaster relief mission. So we've expanded that to our FirstNet capabilities. So when things such as hurricanes, natural disasters happen, we're leveraging 5G from a telecommunications perspective and FirstNet to be able to rapidly install or restore actual telecommunications throughout the nation to prevent any lingering effect as it pertains to being able to connect and communicate. That's just one example of one of the ways we begin to deploy and see goodness from a 5G perspective within the Army Corps of Engineers.
Wow. Again, fully realizing this capability, it's operational in the field. Stephen, give us a primer, if you will, on what your organization does and then how it can fit into this community's capabilities.
Yeah, look, so Spirent is one of the leading test and assurance vendors in the telecommunications sector. And today we're engaged in roughly 1,800 global 5G engagements right across the commercial sector, but also with government and defense. And specifically for government and military standpoint, I mean, there's 4 common initiatives we're sort of globally involved with. The first of those is around 5G supply chain security, where we're working with some of the new national telecoms labs and test beds to provide a testing framework and methodology for performance and security validation of the new vendors, the multi-vendor operability and the digital supply chains. The secondary area we're sort of working heavily around is with the national security agencies themselves, providing them, in essence, a representative 5G virtual sandboxes to allow them to research risks and mitigations, specifically around the heightened focus of using 5G for critical national infrastructure in our energy and utility sectors, transportation, manufacturing. And then we're working quite closely also with the defense industry as well, and many of the major contractors, and supporting them in prototyping some of the use cases with our 5G digital twin emulation environments around smart bases, AR, VR, for example. And probably the last area, look, I think is becoming more prevalent as we're starting to focus around how do you operationalize 5G for defense use cases. So moving from experimentation to adoption. And looking at what type of sort of real world testing under congested and contested environments you would need to go through to make sure that you could stress test a system that it could go operationally live.
And we certainly do appreciate it. There's no doubt that when you have an emerging technology like this that's rapidly being developed, you want to make sure that as you're plugging these capabilities together, things snap together properly, et cetera, especially in the use cases we're talking about on this forum. John, no doubt you're running into this very situation at Palo Alto Networks as you're rolling this type of capability out. What are you seeing out there?
Thank you, Luke, and hello, everyone. Well, a lot of progress from a company perspective. As one of the recognized leaders, technical leaders in 5G security, we've engaged in several industry organizations that represent mobile network operators and the mobile ecosystem, including groups that issue standards and technical reference documents used by operators worldwide, including those in the public sector. As of April of 21, we had been granted 19 US patents for our unique 5G and 4G security technologies, and now we're up to 30. So that shows you the level of investment and research involved. In November of 2020, we launched the industry's first 5G native security offering, and in that same month, we were also selected to join a consortium of technology collaborators in a new 5G security project launched by Nist, National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, or NCCOE. This is a project that can help organizations understand the cybersecurity opportunities, challenges, and risks associated with 5G network deployment, operation, and use. And it also provides information that organizations can use to design, acquire, implement, and operate 5G networks, taking into consideration the security of full hardware to software stack. The NCCOE has released a preliminary draft NIST Cybersecurity Practice Guide, SP 1800-33. It's open for public comment until the 27th of June, 2022. So we're proud of the progress that all these things represent, and we continue to work hard to lead the way as a company and to partner with those government organizations that do the same.
Right. You know, I get the sense that the tracks are really being laid down on this technology, and now the up the stack, if you will, up the value chain on the implementation. So appreciate all the hard work to make sure those things are coming together nice and firmly and without any type of complications. Brian, Verizon, no question, has been on an absolute tear in rolling out 5G. Give us the state from where you all sit in regards to just overall footprint, et cetera, on where we are with Verizon and 5G.
Yeah, we're excited. Thanks for the opportunity, Luke, to be here, and also the panelists to share with this great topic. We are on a tear right now in building out and constructing 5G. January of this year was a game changer for us as we had our first acquisition of the C-band, so rolling out 5G on the mid-band spectrum to actually deliver 5G far and wide. We're very excited participating with the OTAs from a research engineering standpoint with the DoD. And then as Stephen mentioned, actually more in the operational phase. So what we're doing today is actually building out our networks far and wide. And for instance, with Rob and what he's doing with the Air Force, we're actively rolling out on 17 Air Force bases between OTL-1 and OTL-2B. Very excited with Tyndall Air Force Base being one of those 5G locations. So, there's a lot of interest, obviously, in 5G, but more importantly, it's not just the research and engineering, the AR and VR. One of the big use cases that we see not only in the DoD, but in the federal government is actually just wall broadband services, right? And we look at 5G as offering that type of service to actually close the digital divide in a lot of cases, right? So if we're talking anywhere from recruiting offices to provide broadband in remote areas and rural communities, is huge, right? And having one network infrastructure to actually support all these different technologies is very exciting. And then when you start looking at other technologies and our partnerships with leading cloud service providers, right, when you're actually talking about mobile edge compute. So it's not just the RF and the radio access network, it's actually looking at the applications and actually how they work and how you can make them better with the 5G technology and combining things like edge computing. And as John just mentioned, cybersecurity is very near and dear to us, not only from an offering in terms of service, but more importantly, supply chain and actually making sure we have vetted partners and suppliers as we build our 5G network.
And no question about that. And as these applications are now being written with 5G, assuming that capability is there, the potential to unlock is, I'm sure, endless. Rob, you touched on some implementations in the Air Force bases. Why don't you give us a specific program that you'd like to highlight in regards to the implementation? There's no question the tone here, you get the message is the DoD in general, very aggressive with implementing 5G in a variety of scenarios. How about at the Air Force?
Yeah, I think I'll take my cue from Brian and talk about Tyndall. So Tyndall's a unique situation because back in 2019, Hurricane Michael.
For those, if I may, for those that might not know what Tyndall is.
It's an Air Force base. Yeah.
Okay.
So Tyndall Air Force Base, it's down Panama City, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricane Michael in 2019 pretty much effectively wiped it out. So as we were looking to rebuild it, the Air Force said, "Hey, why don't we take it out? Let's turn this problem into an opportunity." And we started the Installation of the Future program. So as a part of that, it included a very heavy IT forward-looking piece to which that contract was actually granted to AT&T. So they came in under the Installation of the Future, and we have a full AT&T instantiation of 5G. Also, as Brian mentioned, under our Opportunity to Lease CONUS program, Verizon has been the main vendor on Phase 1 and Phase 2B. And under Phase 1, the Tyndall Air Force Base was a part of that. So they also have a full 5G presence there. So now we have a unique opportunity to base where we have two of the primary vendors out there with a full implementation. So it is a tremendous opportunity, not just to prove out 5G, but to show that multiple vendors can operate together. We can take advantage of those different pieces, parts, and really, I think it's a model for the way we need to look at installations as we move forward in the Air Force.
Fantastic. And Stephen, I'm sure that's music to your ears to hear that interoperability. Give us an example of a program that you would like to highlight.
Yeah, probably the biggest programs we've been involved with lately have been some of the leading service providers are starting now their move to what I would call the second phase of 5G or true 5G, the standalone version of it, where they're adding the new 5G core network. And we've been working with them to develop these continuous testing and monitoring environments to allow them to deal with the new challenges of how do you get multi-vendors to collaborate together, the interoperability, the use of the cloud network as part of even the architecture, and also to deal with the operational processes around it. I mean, we're seeing a 10x increase in the volume of software releases and changes coming onto the network. So what's really going to be required is a new sort of automated environments that we can continuously revalidate the conformance, the performance, and even the security efficacy from the live right through to from the lab, I should say, right through to live operations. And we have that now deployed with some of the top global service providers who are using that. And that's now also becoming a framework which we're starting to see being used also for Open RAN. As we look at the sort of the radio diversification strategies, how are we going to deal with, again, multi-vendor collaboration? How are we going to get agility brought into actually getting these systems validated and deployed so we can take commercial advantage? And again, the same framework is being used today.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting to hear about how all that collaboration is going on. Dan, I'm sure you're facing this and coordinating this, probably involved in a lot of that interaction that's going on in that program. Tell us about a specific area you'd like to focus on.
Sure, absolutely. I think one of our most interesting challenges is I'll be a little bit vague and intentionally on the program, but one of our biggest challenges is operating over commercial networks. Okay, so we have literally trillions. There are literally trillions of dollars going into investing in the 5G infrastructure and the 5G communication systems, and it's very critical that the DoD leverage that investment rather than trying to compete against it with our own bespoke or proprietary systems. So one of the very interesting challenges is, how can DoD best make use of existing commercial infrastructure as a valid user, respecting the mobile network operators, procedures and policies and all that, yet at the same time still being sufficiently secure for national security level concerns for what you might think of as DoD critical operations. So I think that's one of our most interesting challenges, is how do you operate across commercial networks, not just deploy your own private DoD network. And so obviously we need to do both. In terms of operate through, I often like to talk about operating through other infrastructures in the Department of Defense. So if we went anywhere in the world to do a mission, we would not start by building our own bespoke road, rail, and bridge infrastructure. We would try to operate through existing bridges, existing roads, existing rail systems when plausible. Now, at the same time, Army Corps of Engineers can span a river, build a bridge spanning a river anywhere in the world. We will always have that capability. We always want to continue to have that capability. And we could say the same thing about host country power, about other critical infrastructures. So what about comms? What about 5G? We would like to go in and, when appropriate, leverage existing commercial infrastructure, just like we would leverage existing roads and bridges when appropriate. And also, when appropriate, be able to bring our own infrastructure, just like we can Army Corps of Engineers can build a bridge across any river in the world. So that's one of our biggest challenges. And I will just add one last comment there, which is the commercial infrastructure is fantastic, as many of the commercial speakers here will talk about, all the tremendous investments, the tremendous improvements going out there. From a DoD perspective, security remains one of our critical challenges. And so, can we make that infrastructure secure enough for various DoD missions? I think that's one of the interesting open questions.
Yeah, I would think it's not only secure, obviously secure from a lot of different dimensions, including just resilience, right, and redundancy, et cetera, right? I'm sure that's a big part of that when you're saying secure. You're talking about all the different dimensions of security, reliability, et cetera.
And yes, in fact, if I could follow up on that just a little bit, when we talk about security, we're really talking about 4 aspects of security. And so we have our security folks listening to this will be familiar with the classic, confidentiality, integrity, availability. That's what we usually care about for security. Is our secret data being kept secret? Is the data unmodified? We know who it's coming from. Right? Is the system, as you already pointed out, available and sufficiently accessible for use? I want to highlight one other one, which sometimes can be an interesting challenge, which is observability. Now, for the cybersecurity folks, they'll say, oh, that already fits under the classic confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and it does, and we are not disputing that. But observability can play a very important role as well. I can actually infer quite a bit sometimes by understanding who's talking to whom, even if the data is encrypted, even if the data isn't, can't modify the data, I can't view the data, but just knowing that for example, in my personal life, I'm sending a number of messages to Luke, Luke's sending messages back to me, might indicate something about future Federal News Network segments or something like
Mhm.
that. So we're very interested in not only ensuring all those classic cybersecurity things, but understanding, what's visible on the network, or what stands out in the network, and what an adversary might infer. So thank you all.
Network reconnaissance. That's an interesting pickup there. So we might scratch on it a little bit more. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on the Federal News Network.